Hey, what's going on? This is Rad, the host of SOFREP Radio, and you're tuning in to a very cool episode. But first, before I go into my next guest, I want to talk about our merch store. So sofrep.com/merch. We have our branded goods, the stuff that says SOFREP. It's got SOFREP Radio. You might even see my mug on something if you want to show it on a mug or something. Like a mug? Where's my mug? How come I don't have me on a mug? I like sunflowers. What can I say? But look, thank you so much for tagging us on social media. It really helps to keep the fireplace going. And then I also have to recommend our biggest pride and joy is our bookstore. So we have a book club, and it's sofrep.com/book-club. And that's book-club. So go check out the book club, enroll in it. And hopefully my next guest, an author and former Special Forces company commander and Battalion XO of the 7th Group, we can get his book into our book club. And it's called It Was What It Was, A Tale of the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq, 2006 to 2008, by author Daniel Pace. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Hey, Brad, thank you so much for having me on. It's really a pleasure.
Well, thanks for, hitting us up. We really appreciate those that want to be on the show, especially coming from your level. And, you're really just like an extreme athlete who has put himself through mind control to be the best surgical scalpel blade of combat for our military. Sir, you are that in my mind, the blade of the scalpel.
Let's put it in perspective. I am a former extreme maybe athlete. I don't know. I don't know if I qualify anymore, but I appreciate the props.
Did you ever run a marathon?
We have done a lot of distance running. I've actually never run more than 10 miles, but I did a 30-mile walk. So I don't know if that counts.
That's pretty good. No, and did you ever jump out of a perfectly good airplane against all your body's movements and just did it?
100%. I have had the worst exits, and that's a pretty good one, I think, over the course of my career.
What's your worst exit? What is it? What happened? What's the one thing that pops in your mind of jumping when you like, oh no?
So 100%, if you forget to put your legs through the leg straps of your rucksack, when you jump out, your ruck will hit you in the face. And then you will have a lot of problems getting control of yourself, especially in the dark when you can't see. So I'm just going to throw that as a life lesson for anybody that's jumping with a rucksack. Don't forget that. It's really painful.
Was that a halo jump? Was that like a high altitude?
Yeah, it was.
Square shoot?
And I wasted pretty much the entire jump fighting through the air and trying not to screw it up. But landed okay. No major injuries. Just my pride.
So your shoe was like hanging, your ruck was hanging off of you?
So it hangs. It's normally supposed to hang between your legs.
Flipping up against your face.
But it just kept flipping up you in the face. Yeah, it ended up being kind of dangerous because if you tumble when you open, you'll get tangled up in your risers and just die. But it worked out, And what they say about night jumps is as long as you land successfully, it was a beautiful jump because nobody could see.
Yeah.
And you know what? I hear that philosophy.
Yeah, you got some instructor out there. He's like, that's a 10? Yeah, 10.
10. Nobody saw. 10, therefore, it doesn't count.
Exactly. Oh, you already had your ruck undone. You're fast. What's your technique?
Okay. Talk about it.
Yeah, step into your ruck. Good tips. Now, let's talk about the younger Dan who was just about to go to Iraq in 2006 for just a minute, okay? Let's crack open that guy. So first of all, how old were you when you enlisted in the military? And were you enlisted or officer? Like, which one did you pick, or did you go one or the other?
So I enlisted. So I enlisted at 21. Straight out of college, didn't know what to do with my life, was kind of a screw up, to tell you the truth, a little bit of a drunk. Figured I was going to I got to do something fun, and just enlisted in the Army. Did 4 years as an enlisted guy, kind of probably one of the worst enlisted guys that's ever lived, to tell you the truth. But eventually I found my way, ended up going to OCS. And then by 2007, when we deployed, I was a lieutenant in the cavalry running an infantry platoon.
No kidding. What's your degree? What was it that helped you propel you to get to that officer,
So I have a degree in philosophy, actually, which it might surprise you. There's not a lot of career options for a guy with a philosophy degree. So you pretty much join the Army or go to grad school or
teach philosophy.
You teach philosophy.
Yeah,
that's pretty
right.
Much it.
Really, and why philosophy should be taught and continue to be taught, and why we should have philosophy. Right, it's a really important thing.
It's funny. I graduated with kind of a a college degree. I'm pretty smart, and I realized I wasn't really kind of an idiot. But the Army taught me a lot more about the real world. So it was a good learning process, and it's good to kind of come around on that.
So when you joined, the CS, is that a selection for Green Beret? What's CS? When you said you got your CS, combat selections, or what is that?
Oh, OCS. I'm
OCS.
sorry.
Oh, Officer Candidate
Yeah,
School.
Officer Candidate School. Yeah. I had a guy named Dan Romero who was a platoon sergeant, and he thought maybe I was better than I think I was,
Hmm.
and so he wanted me to try out for it, and actually went really well. I ended up being, I think, an okay officer.
And were you already Green Beret at that point, Special Forces? No.
No,
So you
I
went.
went to yeah. So we have to do platoon leader time in the Army, and then after that, you go try out for Special Forces, and if you're picked up, you come back as a captain and a team leader, and
Mhm.
then you kind of take your career from there.
Yes, right, right. Is that an 18 Zulu?
Alpha,
Alpha,
actually, Alpha.
Alpha.
So Zulu's the old man on the team.
Yeah.
He's the E8.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the one that really knows the most about the SF world. And
Mhm.
then the Alpha, we're the young captain. We join the team. We try to figure it out as we go, and then hopefully bring a little bit of knowledge and perspective.
Did
I
you live?
think it's
Did you
good.
guys live in a salute-free zone at your headquarters?
So it's funny, that is kind of a touchy subject. So I joined at Bragg, and joined SF at Bragg, which is Fort Bragg, is or Liberty now, is in no way a salute free zone. And in no way, it is the most salute zone that you could ever go to, right? But then we moved down to Eglin Air Force Base and got this compound out in a place called Duke Field, which is north of the main base. And then all of a sudden we did have a salute free zone and even a hat free zone
Yeah.
eventually, which, as every SF guy is just, that's the pinnacle of happiness.
Just
Like,
being
I work
walking
on a base
around
with no hat,
with a
just
nice
walking around.
haircut.
Just exactly.
What green beanie?
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, I
Keep it
want to.
nice and in your pocket.
I'll point that out. My dad being a Green Beret, I was little Aaron, and he was toting me up to Hill Air Force Base to the medical clinic for an appointment or pick up my mom's prescriptions. And he was just in his BDUs and he had his beret on, normal dad, normal day. And we're just walking, and I just see like this Air Force guy walking out of the double doors. He had like a trucker hat, said like TR 4375, like his flight on it. And I'm just like, Dad, how come he doesn't have a Green Beret? And he's like, just come along. That's all he did. He said, come along. First of all, I'm on an Air Force base. Second of all, he's Army Green Beret, and it's just not every day. And then I learned, what it takes for you guys to really do those push-ups with me on your back every night. My dad would sit there and do push-ups with me on his back, and that's not the easiest thing. I say, hey, to my kids, come get on my back. And I just sit there.
It's just lay there on the floor. It's funny you talk about that because from a parenting point of view, my kids have no perspective about anything I ever did in my career. And so it really hit me when it was like 2 weeks ago, my youngest boy, well, my second youngest boy, he's 6, was saying, hey, so his friend asked him what dad did. He's like, hey, what's your dad do? And he's like, he works in an office. I'm like, oh, that's what my kids think. You know what I mean? Like, it takes time and perspective for kids to even understand what you do. Like, he goes to the office every day. That's it.
Oh
Like,
yeah. See, but I
it's
had to
just
go to
funny.
the office every day when he wouldn't take me, I was like, why can't I go? They'd go jump, I'd go with them to the runway and the tarmac. They would do PLFs off of the picnic tables, and I would stack up with them and just do a PLF off the picnic table. So it was
It's
like,
child care.
they,
Child care.
dude, they would take me up in the mountains. We'd rappel off waterfalls. Not one time did they say, hey, why is little Radel tagging along? Not one time. They're just like, hey, come along. He's making it. He's doing it. He's
It's
rappelling.
awesome. It's recruiting, right? It's trying to bring people in.
Yeah, I was probably 11, 12, 13 years old doing these types of adventures, et cetera. It was just a really good time. And I'm glad I had that experience with my dad to be able to appreciate what you guys do, 100%. And they always like to be in their civilian clothes. We'd go hike, not in gear, just like polo striped shirt and jeans. And like,
Deep within every Green Beret is a guy that doesn't want to wear his uniform and wants to
yes.
wear civilian clothes. That is a true statement. Like it's just part of the game.
So my dad growing up, he was a pretty integrity driven individual. I feel that, he presented himself to me, even as an older man. I didn't find any faults with what he tried to teach me, other than my own choice in religion. So, I can't fault for who he picks or whatever. It's just like I find religion's your own preference. However, I didn't find any like integrity issues with my dad. It always seemed like, hey, son, I'm really trying to hold up the core values to teach you the core values so that you can have them and be a steward with them. But I know that, you've been in this community for a long time and you're kind of seeing some of maybe this waterbed effect of ethics and integrity happening within the community, right? Where it's like these waves coming in. It's like, I know that you and I kind of talked, corresponded, and you talked about how nobody's really ready for a lose-lose type situation in combat, and how are we supposed to deal with this on an ethical manner? And then it's not just about, and I'm throwing a lot at you, it's not just about the one guy that learns ethics and he tries to keep that going, right? It takes the team to have that ethics, to employ it all together and as a skill set, almost as the guy that knows how to run a crank on a radio, to
Mhm.
generate it. You got to know how to do it. Everybody on the team knows how to do it in case of an emergency. Would you say ethics is break glass? You should have it always. You're like the fire extinguisher of.
So, so it's funny, right? It's this problem, right? And so the problem's really kind of two parts, right? I would say that the first thing is kind of what you talked about, guys going down range to do operational work. And we're going to take misconduct off the table for a minute. I'm not going to talk about guys just doing wrong things, right?
Mhm.
That's almost a different problem. But what I'm really talking about is guys going down range and bumping into these lose-lose situations. Like you're working with a partner, you're in a house, you're clearing a building, you're doing your thing. You have to maintain a relationship with these guys. And then they murder a detainee or they sexually assault a detainee and you're there and you're in that moment and you're like, what do I do with this? I mean, there's nobody growing up, and I think America, that has that kind of background to really just know how they respond. And so what that produces is it produces these situations where guys are doing what they think is operationally right. They make the decision they make one way or the other. I mean, you've had cases where guys beat up guys that were doing that, and you had other cases where guys kind of underwrote it. And in either case, it creates this problem because guys downrange are making decisions that get them into this zone where they just kind of start wandering off azimuth. They're like, all right, I'm making these decisions. I get comfortable making these decisions. I'm getting in this terrain where I'm not sure I'm even doing. I'm trying to do the right thing, but I'm doing things that get so questionable that
Yeah.
it becomes difficult to kind of come home and unwind. And the second piece of that problem is really that the commands structure that we have kind of promotes dishonesty on the subject, if we're being just totally honest. And
Yeah.
the reason I say that is people want to know that you're doing good work, but people always don't want to talk specifically about what you're doing. And so we get used to kind of lying to each other.
Hmm.
Like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing, I'm good. I'm making effects. But that comes to a head when something happens on the news or something comes in public or a guy comes home and he's just kind of so far off azimuth that he's not really able to kind of fit back into the world. And I think we can do better. I think we can fix those problems. We just got to talk about them and then we got to train against them.
Do you think that it becomes this quid pro? It's like status quo, almost like where
Yeah.
say you're the new guy on the team. You just get onto this new team and they're doing these missions, and then they've already got this clique going, and then you fall into the clique, but you know what's happening is not the right thing. But these are the guys you're with for the next 96 years, even 90 days to six, for a long time. There's been talks in the news and the media about Navy SEALs who went against that Green Beret and killed him because of known things that was going on within their little circle of badness.
So we should talk about, you're really talking about, it's a combination of moral injury and moral drift. And so I hadn't heard the term moral injury until, I started working on this book and researched it.
Hmm.
But it's the idea that you have just damage. It's like accumulated physical damage. You injure your leg, and before you know it, your leg just doesn't work that well. It kind of works the same way with moral injury. Like you get used to doing things. And if you never get kind of rebaselined and brought back, it can happen that small groups of people can become so accustomed to doing
Mm-hmm.
things that are so far outside the norms that they just start thinking it's normal. And you never get brought back. And I think the way we don't talk about things and the way we like to avoid these conversations, like, hey, team room mentality, we protect the team room, like,
Yeah.
that's not good. I think in the end that actually bites us. And we just got to find a way to kind of break that down. And that's in essence kind of what I think we
But
got to
you,
do.
you guys are so sworn to your own selves to keep things to yourselves. You are to go to the grave with many things. And
And some of it's necessary, right? Because
right,
there's a degree of deception required in the business. And I think everybody accepts that. That's why we have classification. That's why we have secrets, right? But if we internally don't even tell the truth with other people that are authorized to know this
right.
stuff, then what are we doing? I think we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah, because then the acts that are happening are really happening, and it's not just fake news if it gets out. It's like this is
Yeah, that's
really
right.
occurring, like these things that just happened that are being accused of our own team, you know?
That's right.
And so,
That's right.
but we don't want to like acknowledge it. It's almost like in Full Metal Jacket when Joker's like, you just want me to say we took out a battalion, sir? He's like, no one was killed today. He's like, we need kills, 5 of them at least. It's like,
It can be easy to get sucked into that mentality. It could
yes.
be easy to just like, hey, now we got to keep this thing going. We got to say the right things. And commanders also have this obligation,
Yeah.
right? If you hear about misconduct, you're obligated, according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, to investigate. And so there's a lot of difficulty really wanting to dig, because if it's a great guy and he's doing great work, and if you dig, you might have to investigate, and that just puts everybody into the spotlight. It invites a lot of criticism. It invites people that don't have a lot of perspective on what's going on to get involved. And people are terrified of that because It kills careers. It kills individuals. Sometimes it kills their entire career. And but there's ways around that. There's ways, I think, where we can be internally more honest and we can stop having that effect happen. But right now we just keep running that same circle.
Well, the thing is that, it goes all the way to the top, right? The person that's at the top with the person in his unit, he or she, whoever's in command, they're just like thinking, if I open up this can of worms on Bill, that's going to open up a can of worms on everybody, including myself as the manager of the team. And then my career's at jeopardy because of what Bill did, because I'm not paying enough attention to what Bill was doing outside of normalcy.
It's a trap. We fall into this trap, and nobody wants to crack it, because once you do, it's like picking at a little termite spot on your wall. You're like, I see a little bubble of paint. You pick it up, and you're like, oh my
I
god,
should
what
have
is back there?
repaint it.
Just never looked. And but you have to look, and you just have to. Otherwise, it's gonna come out eventually, and then the house falls down, and then
100%.
we see that. We see that every couple of times. A couple times a year, we get one of these that just explodes, and we've got to get ahead of them. We've got to start working with it, because we're not doing ourselves as a regiment or our people any favors by avoiding it, I think.
I mean, not being in your exact position, but in a management position as a business owner, et cetera, I find that there's a lot of that commonality. I'm supposed to, provide my team with the, the means to get the job done, the place to do the job, the team against the team. If it's war games and we're going up against another team, you're supposed to put all of those logistics together, in hopes that the guys, just throw the trash out for you without you having to ask, hey, bro, will you throw the trash away? And he's like, yeah, bro, no problem. And you're sitting there typing up the orders for like the next mission. And you're like, oh, my trash is overflowing. It falls off every time I throw a piece of paper. And so that bro goes down the line and he's like, hey, bro, will you throw the boss's trash away? And he looks down. He's like, there's no more bros. So I guess I'm the bro. So he goes and throws it away. But then there's the guy on the team who sees that, oh man, the captain is going to give me the best mission because I'm going to throw his trash away without him asking. I'm going to go in there right now, grab his trash out, go throw it away. He's going to say, hey, you're not a bro. You're a friend on the team, not the bro on the team. Right. So, the friend versus bro, do you think that's kind of a thing also where it's like, hey, go do what he needs, or should we just get done without being asked?
So 100%. And a lot of times when you do get into that kind of insider outsider mentality, you get into the, hey, this is my guy. I trust this guy. There's a lot of long relationships here. So we're talking about people that have known each other for many, many years.
Yes.
You get comfortable. Like you said, you know the trash is getting taken out. You're not worried about how the trash is getting taken out. Like maybe the trash is getting taken out because somebody illegally paid somebody else to come in and take that trash out. The command's like, hey, trash is out.
Right.
We're good, right? I'm not worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what you want. You don't want the organization to be like illegally getting the trash taken out, or create this crazy like Rube Goldberg mechanism that takes it out with all this like,
yes,
what are you doing? Nobody wants that.
No.
Sometimes we end up with that if we're not careful.
Yeah. And so, it kind of goes to these movies that get made where you see a rogue unit that strikes their gold streak in like an Iraq movie and they see gold and they're like, oh, there's gold, guys.
Three Kings, right?
Yeah, right. And I'm just like, oh, and they're trying to show like, how can we heist it and get away with it, et cetera. I mean, that's ethics. That's the morals.
So I think the thing is, I think the one leads to that, because everybody would agree that stealing money off the battlefield is probably not good. But people don't get there overnight. People get there one step at a time by doing things that feel like, no, I think I'm in the right. It's a little wrong, but I think I'm doing the right thing. Over time, you can get far enough gone that you just stop seeing the distinction. And then you're killing a guy for reporting on your financial misconduct, or you're stealing gold. I mean, these things start happening.
Yes.
You got to head them off at the pass, because by the time you get to that point, it's too late, right? Those guys are pretty much lost, and your organization's going to take a hit for it.
I mean, it doesn't mean that the loadmaster on the team, who's been certified loadmaster, is the one to be talked to.
Yeah, that's right.
It's his plane at that point. Don't even come on here.
Yes, that gets into other problems with corrupting a broader swath of the organization by kind of bringing people in. And again, it gets ugly. It's that termite problem again. You don't want that. And if you could stop it early, then you can stop it early. You don't end up with the problems. You don't end up with the spent off damage.
It is a termite. It's a termite with a woodpecker doing double damage. So the woodpecker's like, tat, where's that termite at? Tat, and the termite's whistling holes. And he's got all these holes, and you're like, stop, just stop. I need just to water it. You got to water it. Just water the tree. It'll kill the bugs. Just give it water.
Please, please stop pecking at my house. Like, at
Please.
least eat the termites. At least eat the at least get the two working together. But oh
Yes.
gosh, I mean, how much damage does this stuff cause? And we talk about houses falling down, but
Oh
that is a
man.
couple years back with the cocaine smuggling out of
Yep.
South America, and you look at that, and that is regimental damage that takes years. Like, people still remember these things, and they just never go away. But we don't treat that like something preventable. We treat it just something like, well, it happened again. I guess we'll blow up everybody that was involved, throw them all out, and we'll just kind of move on with our day. But we wouldn't tolerate that answer in anything like marksmanship or jump proficiency.
Right.
We would say you need to train better so you don't have these mistakes. Ethics just kind of ends up getting brushed aside. I think people are just not comfortable talking about it or don't feel that it's a solvable problem.
You know, they might turn it into this word that was made up of like you're too woke. Okay, like I hate the word. Is just like I think people use it and they don't even know what they're saying. They're like, it's like this term. It's like, isn't it okay? First of all, to be that I'm awake. I'm awakened to my environment and my surroundings. They say head on a swivel. I'd say the guy with the head on a swivel is kind of woke. However, isn't it where they're like, oh, our military is too PowerPoint presentations and like I got to sit through like hit enter and like listen to someone tell me about conduct and how to become better and I just want to go shoot people because I'm good at that. How do we?
It
Yeah,
It's true. It's 100% true. We
yeah,
do love the military. The military loves, I mean, everybody does to an extent, but the military loves to slap a term on something, give it some online training, and say, hey, you know what? That problem's fixed. I've
right.
addressed that problem. Like, well, we did address it, but I'm not sure that online training is really the tool that's going to get us out of this. But that is a solution. I mean, Commander has shown that he has done a thing. We did the thing, and therefore we're better, right? Like, well, not not necessarily. Not if the solution's not really getting after the problem.
So not just SF teams. I'm not talking just special forces teams. Let's talk as a whole, like military as a whole with ethics, period. Do we just pull everybody out onto the bleachers, have them stand there and then have someone walk back and forth and say, hey, you guys have to understand that this is real. Ethics are real. Your integrity means you're going to do the right thing when no one is looking.
I think that's honestly kind of what we do now. And it's just a little silly, right? Like, you'll get the poor JAG always gets tagged with these jobs. He just
Right.
gets up there and he gives his brief on the law of war. We talk about the things you legally can't do. And you're like, that doesn't answer any of the questions that I have about what I actually need to do on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to extend the training because it's the last thing on a Friday or it's right before lunch, so we just
Right.
go home. But no, the answer really isn't that. That classroom is such a small piece of it. But really, what you have to do is put people in stressful situations like, let's say, a full live close quarters
Right.
battle like FTX. And then you throw a little ethics in there. And then you find out really how a guy under stress is going to react. Because that's how you can teach him. It's not to punish the guy, but if a guy does really questionable things under stress, you need to know it. Because you need to be able to help that guy like work through that and say, all right, hey, what you did was a little crazy. It's training. You're good. Training's good. We fail in training, and then we kind of correct,
Right.
and then we evaluate where you are, and then we help you build to the next level. But we don't want that to happen downrange. And so if you never test it, if you never have a guy shoot at a target, how do you know if he's going to hit the target?
Right.
And so that's what I think we
So,
got to do.
so you need
So
like
the classroom's a little piece.
an ethics FTX of exactly that. You got the
Exactly.
targets involved, but they don't realize that it's ethics that they're being tasked with. They think, oh,
100%.
I'm just doing a 72-hour stress test. I got to go from point A to point B, from point A to point B. I got to use my map. I got to use my tricorder. And on the way, there's like maybe like something to drink. And you're like, oh, should I drink that? Do I take the eat me, drink me?
So partners make it so easy to inject this material in because there's some cultural disconnects when we're working with people from different parts of the world. And when you inject those partners into FTXs, you can really generate some pretty realistic situations that
Sure.
you're going to bump into that the guy's not going to necessarily know the right answer to. And that's what you're trying to do. You want to create, these quandaries, and then you want to see how he solves them so you can get a handle on,
Correct.
is the guy like a dirty bird? Like, some guys are always going to go with the darker half of gray, and some guys are really kind of Boy Scouty and going to go with no, straight right or wrong. You just need to know who's who so that when you have a really kind of grimy mission, you could put the guy on there and you can know how he's going to
Right.
react. But you don't want to have the situation where a guy that's super black and white ends up with a really gray situation and reacts very poorly, uh, like we saw happen in Afghanistan a few times. Because that's bad for everybody. It's just knowing your guys' capabilities and then helping them train to maximize their potential.
Yeah, I have stood in a circle of some spec ops guys, and one guy looked at me. He's like, "Rad, we don't always need the Boy Scout." I was just like,
Excelsis.
I was like, you're
That's
Polish
Excelsis in
Grom,
training.
right? I was like, are you Polish Grom? He's like, no, bro, United States Navy SEAL. And I was like, okay, all right.
It's that there's some things don't require Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Some things do. You just have to make sure you don't put the wrong guy on the wrong thing.
Yeah, again, really, someone's got to snatch the car and take it from grandma and get to the ocean and swim away with Charlie Sheen. Come on, someone's got to do
There's,
that.
there's a time and a place for everything, right? You just have to
Yes.
make sure you know what's what.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
And the
But
right
I think we
guy
could do better.
for the right job, like, okay, it's like, hey, well, Bill, Chris, and Steve are going to get on this mission. As the captain, I feel that that's their placement because he knows them and, he's worked with them and he's seen them in these processes and he knows ethically that they've done some really good things. So he's going to trust them to use their laurels and their ethics. Then you get somebody who's brought in who thinks that it's like in another country, like you said, who's an interpreter. And he might just go a little rogue against the rest of the guys. Like, yo, man, you haven't been taught on this ethics situation over here. We don't hit the women. Don't hit them.
We don't do that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But so that's every team, though. Every team has guys that are strong at things and guys that aren't. Like my last team, we had a guy who was just not that good in the house. Frankly, he wasn't that good in the house. He was a little reckless. Hey, you know what though? He was an amazing builder. And the dude, we would send him out to cock every target, to build everything. If you needed a house built, if you needed 40 guys put to work to go build a house in a day, that guy could nail it. Most of us are building kind of crooked stuff. If I'm honest, I'm a pretty bad carpenter, but he really wasn't.
Sure.
Great. We have a place for you. And ethics is the same way. Not everybody has to be the best shot, but everybody needs to have something to do. And you sure don't want to get the guy that's a bad shot in a situation where he needs to take it, or you're gonna find your team in a real bad way.
I think maybe talking to Randy Searles, who we had on the show here. I think he's a friend of yours. He mentioned that he didn't even shoot his gun in the first entire selections process. And it wasn't even anything to do with, hitting the target at the point. It was like just getting through, the situation and everything along those lines. You concur with that type of sentiment? Like, hey, the gun comes like kind of later on in the training.
It does, really. I mean, you get into the community mostly off character and kind of grit and endurance. And then from there, you can teach people the rest of it. And that's kind of, I think, what Randy was talking about. Like, yeah, you have to train, you have to eventually learn how to shoot, but we don't necessarily select people on marksman. They call it the whole man concept, but you're really looking for guys that can think on their feet and interact with people and kind of deal with the suck for long term, and then get in. But honestly, also, we probably do select people because we're looking for people that are comfortable in the gray, right? We're not always looking for Boy Scouts. We probably do select people with kind of a tendency to be willing to act on their own volition, I guess you could say, be willing to take the steps they feel are necessary. And a lot of training emphasizes that. Like, hey, it's a bad situation, you do the best you can. You just have to make sure that knowing that, you take those people and kind of show them like where the left limit of what that means is. Like, okay, I know I said get the mission done, but sometimes you might be doing a little too much to get the mission done. We need to make sure the guy really understands what he could do.
Did you really need to take a selfie on that mission, boss? Was that something that you really were you?
It's never probably okay. Probably never want to take the picture, but hey, everybody does things different.
I'm just saying that would be ethical.
I was fortunate enough to grow up before the cell phone was really a thing. So thank goodness that I didn't have a cell phone in college. I don't know what would be on camera or the internet, but you know what,
dude,
that's all safely in the past. So we can,
dude, if I may, okay, today. I was born in 77. Let's be clear. I had no cell phone. So yeah. So we're Zennials, right? You and I are that. 5 years of Zelda came out. And we are that, okay?
Exactly. My controller still had a cable on it.
Yes. And my dad was still doing Morse code and winding a generator. And he said, I'm the boss as the 18 Echo on the team because I make the commander have to do the 5 minute, everybody rotates. He's like, everybody rotates, jokingly. But, those guys all had a first name basis. It was Jack, it was Maynard. It was just, or call sign Bugs. It was never like, it was always like, except for one time I heard the major yell for my dad. I never heard him swear before. They had set up a booby trap on the major's desk. Okay. Cause they were always booby trapping each other. I bet you know this kind of game.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit.
It was a whistling, real loud whistler, device. And they attached it, put a primer in it, put it under his desk drawer. So when he pulled his pencils out, it blew up. Like he's gonna check his pencil drawer in his office, you know? Oh, dude, when that I was in the armory when that went off, it was so loud. I heard Radel. My dad's like, "I'll be right back." That's all he says to me. As we're in the armory part of it, and he's like, "I'll be right back," and he just goes up and handles it. It's like, hey,
You got to make sure it stays funny, right? Occasionally people
Yes,
cross the line. You don't want that. You don't want it to be received badly. Like, I thought it was funny. I thought we were joking. We're not joking
right?
anymore. Oh, okay, we're serious.
Yeah, we're serious. Oh, you're serious
Uh,
now? Well, they always try to kill each other,
uh, that's true, but it's kind of
bro.
part of the. Oh, yeah, we
The
team room humor. Team room humor is hard to stop with, right? There's things that are funny in the team room that you realize. My wife's like, people don't talk like that. That's really not funny. Like, what? Oh, is that not?
I
Is
thought
that
that
not
was,
funny? Oh, I thought it was funny. It's kind of a
but
microcosm
why,
of
if
what we're
you're a
talking
team
about, though, right?
guy, it's supposed to be funny. You're a team
It's
guy, honey.
funny, but that's a microcosm
We
of what
had
we're
so
talking about, right? You these little cultures that
yeah.
just kind of start diverging from the mothership. And you're like, gotta bring it back. Gotta bring it back.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And, again, yeah, it's true, man. Those were some good times. We'd rappel off the building together, Green Beret Family Day. They'd pull out the M60s, belt fed, and we'd be shooting them with blanks at houses. No one even questioned us. We're in this field behind the armory at a school, just going ham with M16s and M60s. And obviously law enforcement had to be made aware. I'm thinking about these things as I get older in life. Like, could you ever do that
Right.
today?
Right. Oh, how many things that you did as a kid do you think, why did I do that? Was I really that dumb? You're
Yeah.
like, yep, we were. They still do that though. So
That,
7th group here still runs Red Empire Week every summer. They bring everybody up. They could shoot, blanks out of a 240. They could do, the rappelling. They could do all the marching. It's cool. I mean, people love it though, right? That's good. That's community outreach.
10, 12 years old, holding a 60. I go, hey, can I hold it like Rambo? And he's like, yes. And so I got to hold the bolt. I'm like, tick, 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 tick. He had to take it from me because it's so heavy. But at the end of the day, where else can you do that? Where else do you get that,
Yep.
indoctrination into such a cool world as a kid watching dad and all of his guys and all of the other kids growing up? I'm still friends with kids from his 19th group.
It's funny, but you get a little taste of it. Some people really get hooked and just gotta do it with their
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. He
Oh
apologized to me
man.
about that. He's like, I'm sorry for introducing to you at such a young age, all of this equipment and stuff. And I was like, why, dad? I love it. And he's like,
I
that's
mean, what
why.
am I? My kids have toys. My kids have toy guns and toy swords and toy everything else. So what's the difference? It's just a little cooler and a little heavier, frankly.
Well, Dan, funny thing is I have two full blown airsoft stores that are like armory set up full of equipment inside of it. Okay. With all of the gear. And then we have an indoor shoot house here outside of Hill Air Force Base that has exactly what it is. And we'd go in there and do just 10 on 10 for 3 or 4 hours
That's
at a
awesome.
time every single day. My ops manager is former infantry guy who started airsofting and then went to the infantry and then got out. And now he's like, can I come back? And we're like, come home.
Come on back. It's the appeal of
Yeah.
airsoft really demonstrates, I think, the appeal of this work in general. Like people like that stuff. Not everybody gets a chance to do it for real, but it's fun, right? It's like kind of Peter Panish. You're like, I always wanted to be this awesome dude that you see on TV or all the '80s movies that we watched growing up. I want
That's
to be that
right.
guy, and then as you get a chance to kind of do it.
That's cool. You're very, very, very cool about that because I would always tell people, just because these kids are wearing something that resembles them, they're not out there claiming to be them. It's like Kobe Bryant going onto the court and saying, hey kid, take off my jersey. But all they're trying to do is just like look up to Kobe Bryant. And he'd be like, oh, here's some shoes and I wear these wristbands and I got this sweatband for you. And here, now you look almost like me, but try to dunk, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no question, right? I don't think I don't know. To be honest, I don't know why people feel negatively about it. It's like historical war reenacting. It's like anything else. Like if that's what makes you happy,
That's right.
that's what you want to do. Who cares? It's enjoyable.
I love you. You're great.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just people got to be a little more live and let live in general, right? Like, hey, whatever, you do your thing. Whatever makes you happy, that's great.
I told, I totally agree, and I think that you're pretty savvy. I kind of looked into a little bit of you and found your LinkedIn profile and saw that you're Six Sigma.
Yes, yes. Oh gosh, yes. I'm a PMP and Six Sigma, and I have
Yeah,
a day job. I love my day job. I'm a
uh,
program manager. So I do a lot of fun stuff working with the old guys and try and put good training together with them. But the reality is you got to check some blocks to get there. And so, yep, Six
yeah.
Sigma and PMI, and you do it, and There's goodness to be had in anything. I won't say that I'd probably do it again for fun, but it's good to have done it.
Hey, no, it's good because I've done some Six Sigma training, and I didn't get to the black belt status of it, but like my ops manager at my arena, he's Six Sigma, and I'm always going up to him like, "You ready to Six Sigma? Yeah, come on, bro.
That's
What kind of words
that's
you gonna throw at me today?"
That's the part that makes it feel so silly. Like there's some good material there, but sometimes it's just really heavy handed. And you're like, I can't take this seriously and talk about it because I just feel a little embarrassed about this like black belt idea. Like what am I doing right now? But it's just there's good concepts there. They just try and make them sound a little too cool, I think, and it makes me a little embarrassed.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Oh
It's good.
man.
It's good to be able to, have that here. You never know when the silliness of Six Sigma actually helps you. I may use it and not even realize I'm using it because I'm like,
It
oh, hey,
does. It does. I mean, the reality is it's useful stuff. I mean, you're looking at like taking a task and breaking it down into components and figuring out how to push, work and effort into solving these tasks. I mean, a lot of it's very, very military training. It's got different words. It's a very similar structure to how we think. And I mean, it's goodness. I can't crap on it as a thing that I learned. It's just again, it's just packaged kind of silly. It's like that car that you're a little embarrassed to drive. Like I drive a Honda Odyssey because I got 5 kids, and you drive this Odyssey and you're driving around. You're like, I feel a little ridiculous. To tell you the truth, it's a minivan, but I kind of like it because it's actually a really comfortable car. So hey, you just do what you can. You just try and get past it.
let me put you up on a pedestal. Every bass player loves your van. Okay, because you can put a bass amp in a crate.
You could put all this stuff in it, and I could see my kids in the little mirror thing when they're doing stupid stuff, so I could pull over and make them walk home. Or you could do all those things because it's Odyssey. It's not the most beautiful car ever, but she
Because
functions.
it's an
She's functional.
Odyssey. Honda, sponsor me.
It's
Honda Odyssey,
it's
baby.
even it's even maroon. It's like I think I have the most common car for a person with kids in America. There's like 5 of them in every parking lot at Walmart, which is amazing. But you know what? Whatever, man.
That's
It's
okay.
it's okay.
You don't have to wear your green beanie everywhere, bro. Okay, just drive your Odyssey.
Yep. I passed it. I passed it.
How long ago did you get out? Are you still active? Are you still out? What's going on? You're out now, right?
Yeah, so I retired at the beginning of 23. So I'm just over
Hmm,
a year out. I was actually in Germany doing some work with DITRA for my last active duty gig, and then I decided it was the end. It was the end for me. Actually, kind of the old 2020 with the COVID thing, and for being honest, I didn't get my shot. So they told me it was time to retire, and you know, I talked to my wife and agreed that maybe it's just time to retire. It's not for me anymore. And so we hung up the spurs and came back to Northwest Florida, and I've been happy since.
that's good. I'm happy for you. And you've made it back through all your trials and tribulations in the military. Obviously, you've been all over the place and done a lot of things. And I think theater of operation, was it like South America?
So we did South America, and then I went over and did a lot of Europe and Africa work between 2020 and 2024, and then obviously CENTCOM. Nobody
Wow.
can get away from the Middle East if you've been in since 2001. But no Pacific, but I think it touched everywhere else pretty well.
That's actually my dad's theater was the Pacific, the theater of
Hey,
operation.
he was in a very different time, right? Like everybody's in the Pacific back then. Like,
Yeah, 80s and 90s. Yeah, 80s and 90s. He got out in 91. So yeah, he'd go over to Thailand and the Philippines and like 6 months at a time. I never went. He always went. Like the families in, I think the SF kind of stay home and they get to establish, school and friendships and, church relationships for a long period of time. And then the dad goes,
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of separation time. It's probably the number one thing my wife is happy about me getting out. It's the amount of time home and the predictability. Right? There's a lot of like we're leaving now. Like oh, okay, I guess we're leaving now. Like she's had to pack up the house, and 3 weeks notice, move to California. She doesn't miss that part, and I don't either. Gosh, you get a little tired of it. It's fun, but you get a little burned out on it maybe.
yeah, that moving life. But I'm just really, really happy that you made it through it all. And I'm sure you're happy too. And now you're living life and you're writing a book. And so you've transitioned into being an author. And now were you writing your thoughts out, journaling, through your career in the military so that you could have it later on?
Yeah, so I'm old enough that my wife and I, on our first several deployments, only wrote letters. Like they really had no comms plans back in '01, '03, '04, that kind of time. You couldn't do any other thing except write. And so I got kind of in the habit of just writing down my thoughts, and we'd send letters, almost every day. We've been married 20 years, so 22 years. But yeah, so I got in the habit of just scribbling stuff down. And then honestly, during COVID, sitting on my back porch, doing remote work like everybody else, just started really kind of putting thoughts on paper and really trying to capture some of the stuff that happened, put my thoughts down. And it just started submitting stuff, started writing, and really kind of fell in love with it. And now I just enjoy it. I just really enjoy the process of kind of putting thoughts down, polishing them up, and trying to tell these stories that you just don't want to see lost.
Now, it was what it was, a tale of the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq, 2006 to 2008. I probably watched it. I mean,
Yeah.
there were so many embedded journalists back in the day that were just going everywhere ham. I mean, all the news media was different then. It was like, you really couldn't, you're just watching what was going on. Did you guys
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
embeds and stuff like that in that?
So many. So yeah, so many. I mean, we were in Baghdad at the heart of the surge, and obviously,
Yeah.
you're getting toward election year too, so it became a politically really, really sensitive place, and we ended up with everybody. Yeah, there's the book, right? It actually came out well. I have a friend that put that cover art together, and we sat and created that chalkboard. And I was like, I want this chalkboard. I want a guy to look confused on
Kill
the cover.
bad
I want him to look
guys.
like he's got this overwhelming amount of information. And he really did a good job putting it into a
Bro,
cover. So good on him. Got him Chad Woody. Really, really solid
get
artist.
get a Rocky culture, kill bad guys, create
So,
stability, uh, keep my guys
oh gosh.
alive,
Keep the family
keep
intact,
family intact. Yeah.
I so, but that was that deployment. It's just this. You're this lieutenant. You don't know anything from anything, and you've got this overwhelming situation of like, I want you to rebuild a piece of Baghdad. So defeat all the bad guys. You go live there in the town. Just go live there, and then defeat all the bad guys, and also reestablish the entirety of the architecture of governance there. So I want you to stimulate the economy, get some security running, maybe get the utilities fixed. And I'm like, I don't know
Jeez.
any of that. I don't even know where to begin. But you just start, and that's the story I really wanted to capture. Is just this bunch of people who are like, here we are, bunch of dudes living in downtown Baghdad, and we're just gonna put this place back together. And yeah, that's
Dude.
it. 15 months. It's a long
And
time.
that's the
You get
book.
some time to. That's it. A lot of trial and error. You got a
Is
lot of
it
time to figure things
can
out.
we is your book available right now for purchase on the web? Where can we find it at?
Yeah, yeah. It's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. I self published it, which you learn as you go, and I'm happy I did it that way. But ended up hanging it out there. It's on Amazon today. You get it for $3 if you want the digital copy. So nice and cheap.
What a $3, dude. Easy $3. You're
So it's three
supporting
bucks.
you're you're supporting Dan Pace, okay? His goal of writing another book. It's $3. If a million people could just buy your book once.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Oh, I never realized writing exactly how much there is to do after you write. You write the book, you're like, I finished the book. Awesome, I'm done, right? You're like, nah, that was like 20% of the work. Like, I know you're obviously in the digital production business as well. There's so much more than
Yeah.
just talking right now that goes into this, and it's a
Oh,
lot of work. Like, a lot of
and
work.
talking and the questions and the producing and the whole back end and then putting them up and making it, palatable. You want your listeners and readers to enjoy it. You're like, oh, please,
Yeah,
give
you
me
got
a
to get the word
review.
out,
Tell me
right?
you hate my voice. Tell me, tell me,
That's
tell me, tell me, tell me you could do it better. Go ahead. Comment down
oh,
below right
with
now. Go ahead.
feedback is another side of that altogether. Like you just got to get a nice thick skin. Like you get some, you know the deal. I'm sure you know better than I do. But gosh, you get some comments. You're like, wow, man, that is a great thing you just
Yeah.
said to me. I appreciate that. But
I, I, I
it's
usually
part of the
chalk it up
game.
to that they just aren't in my shoes. If you're supposed to be doing it, you'd be wearing my mother effing shoes, bro.
Maybe he's having a bad day. I try to give the person the benefit of the doubt, but you does sometimes sting a little bit. But yeah, there's just
Yeah.
so much. I mean, people are producing content every day, books, videos, everything else. I mean, so much is produced that getting anything to stand out. I mean, one, it's got to be good, but then also, even if it's good, there's a chance nobody will ever read it because you really got to get that word out and kind of help people see it. Otherwise, it just dies. I mean, it's just gets buried in the sea of other things.
Yeah. And one thing we don't want to get buried is ethics. And whether you're in the military or you're out of the military, ethics matter. And just, being that person behind the desk as the CEO, being the dude behind the desk over your security watch at the job that you got because you got out of the military. Now you're a security guy.
Right? It's the same, but it's funny, that same analogy of you getting buried, like just like a new book can get buried in the sea of books, ethics can just fall into the sea of other requirements. Because gosh, if there's one thing the special operations world is buried in right now, it's requirements. You're supposed to be good at everything, and you're supposed to do
Yeah.
everything. You have to be culturally tuned into everything and ready for everything in the globe. How do you take a 40-hour week or even a 50-hour week and break that down into blocks of like, all right, we're going to prepare for this. We're going to prepare for that. And ethics just tends to fall through the cracks. It's not seen to be as important as some of the other stuff. And maybe it's not. But again, I think we gotta change the mentality on that just a little bit.
No, I took your call because it is. It's important. I wanted you on to talk about ethics and from your level as a professional athlete and Green Beret.
I think it's important. I think that we have major problems that come out of it, and we're just not diagnosing the problem and then addressing a cure that we can apply to it. But I think we can. It's just going to take a matter of somebody being willing to do it.
Yeah, affirmative. Affirmative. And,
We'll
and
see
and we
though.
have to do that
We'll
within
see.
ourselves. Yeah, it's within ourselves,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, you know, I hold integrity. See, I'm going to bring airsoft back here because the game requires one important thing, and that's you call your own hit. So if somebody's 100 yards out and they've thrown some rounds at you and you think you got hit, you should call it. Just go with the doubt. Say, when in doubt, just die. Because
Hmm?
somebody out there has probably got a GoPro on their gun and they've probably zoomed in on you to see if the hit hits you. So it's going on YouTube. So there's a lot of things around everywhere you're at. And it's not just cameras, it's people and what people see. And it may not just be your own team. It could be the people you're trying to help. And those people see you being that way. And they are like, oh, I don't know if I want to help them because look how they just did to that. Ethical.
It's 100%. It's reputation. It's all about reputation, and reputation's really built the individual level. People need to take it upon themselves to protect their reputations, to be ethical and upright. But organizations have to set the condition to make sure to reward that, to kind of keep an eye on that, and to kind of promote it, right? Because if you encourage people to behave unethically or to lie to you, then they're going to do it, and it's kind of your fault for encouraging it. So on the one hand, individuals got to behave right, but you also got to create a culture that discourages, in the airsoft advance, well, cheating, right? The culture should discourage it,
Right.
and so if we get there, then I think we could solve the problem.
100%. Please implant ethical microchips into the bots that come out in the future. Please.
So yeah, absolutely. I'm sure Elon Musk will put a brain chip in us to make us all behave ethically. I get
Please.
shocked when I'm bad,
Please.
but
What just happened?
anyway, I thought it was good. Yeah, you don't want to. I don't know how to get my software updates, so my brain doesn't recognize
How do we
ethical
stop?
things anymore.
How do we stop RoboCop from,
Uh,
Murphy?
it's like Ed 209, right? Ed 209 just smoking that dude that he was getting his little brief. Like, I put my weapon down. Like, it's programming error. I mean, hopefully it's funny till it's not. Hopefully no brain chips coming. But
Right.
yeah, well, hopefully not get
Well,
there.
let's keep our functional brain going and be the best we can be, the best stewards out there. And, if you promise you're going to do something and you should live up to that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's up to us to protect our own reputations and that of the communities we're in. I mean, if you're a member of a profession, then it's expected that profession is going to police itself, and then you're going to be able to handle yourself as a member of that. And it's up to all of us to do that. And so, if we see the organization wandering the wrong direction, we need to make sure and check it as members of it. They were the only people that
That's
can.
right. That's right. And if you're out there listening and you're thinking about taking a step into the military, I encourage you to go talk to a career counselor and see if it's the right step for you. You never know if you're going to be SF unless you go try to become special forces. You just can't say I could have, would have if you never tried or should have. So,
It's so true, guys. There's a huge expression in the community. It's like, don't never self assess, right? Never tell yourself that you're not going to succeed at something. Like, no, go through the process. There's a process that'll tell you if you're good enough or not. But let them make that decision, because you might find out, one, that you're better than you thought, or at least you might find out what you need to do to improve. And so, self-limiting and self-doubt is such a huge check on what people think they can do with their lives. Like, nah, just give it a try. You know what? You can write a book, you can produce a video, you could be a Green Beret.
right.
You might not be very good at it, but you can try, and then you'll know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's my dad talk coming out, right? That's what I gotta tell my kids every day. So apologies on that one.
Same here. Same here. No, it's all good. No, I love to hear it, and especially from you. And on behalf of my dad, thank you, for the bloodlines that you have running through you. So, there's not much else about that. I can't quite.
Nothing like being a parent
No,
to
man, I
realize
love
just
your kids
oh
will
man.
all appreciate everything that you do, and as well as I do, and I'm sure my listeners do as well. And I know I've had you roughly an hour on our show, and we've been talking, and I'd love to have you back, and we could talk more and get into other books and things that you've got going on. And it's nice to introduce you to the community here, Dan. And thanks so much for being on the show. And if you have any last minutes of words, I'll let you have them. Go ahead.
First, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, it's you want to get the message out. You want to make sure people kind of hear what you think is the right thing to tell people, and I appreciate you providing that venue, not just for me, but for other people. Right? There's a lot of people that have a message to tell, and if there's no place to do it, then that message kind of dies. And so, thanks for what you do, and thanks for having me on. I'd love to come talk again sometime. I probably
Sure.
like talking a little too much, to tell you the truth. So I'm always happy to do it.
Bro, we can get into a whole other conversation why I'm even in this job.
Hey, we all gravitate to things for different reasons.
That's true. And on behalf of Brandon Webb, who runs SOFREP.com, who gives me my job, got to give him a shout out. And, go check out the book club at SOFREP.com/book-club. You can go check out Cold Fear, Steel Fear, all of the different books that are in there right now. And hopefully we can get Dan's to go inside of our book club. I'll link you up with Guy, our managing editor, and see if that can happen. You know what
Please
I mean?
do.
And how that would.
I'm
So
more than happy to support.
So I'll hook up with us in an email afterwards, after we're done here. So on behalf of SOFREP.com, on behalf of myself, Rad, and Dan Pace, and my listener out there, I just want to say peace.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.